We're really excited to talk about Damanhur because I've
Mm,
never been. I almost went a couple years ago when I was in Italy, but yeah, I've just like the ins and outs. We've only ever been part of like very small communities, so like for a
yeah.
community that big. But to start, also, we were thinking just like your journey with the intentional community world, like how you
Mm,
first learned of them and what kind of got you to now where you are, which is
yeah.
living at Damanhur.
Actually, my journey, it started like I wasn't really like into communities before I started. Like I had a spiritual awakening where that put me into like a kind of a life crisis, I think, when I was 19. I was living in Berlin at the time. And after that, I started to travel all over the world to try to find like, okay, who am I? Where should I be? All these kind of things. And after certain types of very like also lonely retreats in the jungles and in the Himalayas and stuff like that, I ended up deciding that I needed to put roots somewhere because I was very much like up in my head. And so I created some important projects that I thought would create, change the world some way in Sweden where I grew up. But I just found like closed doors everywhere. And that's when I realized like, okay, you cannot really change the world by yourself. Like you can change the world by incarnating and being something, but I wanted to do that with other people. Like I wanted, and that's when I became interested in community. Actually, before that, I didn't really think about community. And so that became a big interest of like, okay, wow, there are places around the world where people come together, join around certain ideas and ideals, and they are like leaving normal society to pursue that and to really do their own thing. And that became very interesting for me. And so I had like a big long list of communities that I wanted to visit. Of course, I wanted something that also had some kind of spiritual roots because, but that even became in the background because I was just super into the idea of like growing my own food, being self sufficient, all of that kind of stuff. But Damanhur was the only community at the time, because it was winter time, that was open in Europe. All the others are like closed if you cannot like help out in their farms and stuff like that. So that's why I went to Damanhur, also because I had practically no money, and so I was like, okay, I don't want to go like too far away because I don't know where I will end up. And so I signed up for like a 3-month program to try to be a citizen in the community. And I couldn't afford finishing the program because I had really little money. So I started doing work exchange already after like a month or so. But I really think that like in the beginning, I was so fixed on the fact of visiting so many different communities, but my heart was really telling me like, no, you need to stay. Like this is your place, and my mind was going completely crazy because I just wanted to continue. But in the end, after a kind of a couple of panic attacks, I decided to stay, and then I got over it, and of course now I'm here. It's 9 years that I'm here now, so of course that was
Wow.
a great. I'm very happy about staying. Yeah,
That's awesome. It
yeah,
reminds me a lot of our journey too. I feel like we similarly were like motivated to find community in like this world change kind of heart of like, seeing it as a way of like, yeah, just like a better life. And like, and that's also I think what inspires us to make videos about it is like
yeah.
show people the option. And it's cool that that's something. There's not that many people making videos about intentional communities, and so it was
Like
another
no
reason I
one.
was excited to talk to you, because I was like, oh wow, this is like another person who's clearly like really passionate about showing the lifestyle.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's something
yeah.
we've
The
had trouble
reason.
with too, because a lot of people in communities kind of like go to community because they want to maybe be away from the world, and so like
Yeah,
filming and showing the world is something that a lot of people are afraid of. So it's like something, yeah, we've like been back and forth with, is like going to places and then seeing if they're comfortable with even like
yeah,
speaking about this lifestyle.
Right,
yeah.
because
And
it's
this
such
is
a like an underground thing, like I mean literally you guys have a whole underground thing, but like the intentional community vibe in general, like it's everywhere. Like there's probably one close to you somewhere, but you just don't know about it because they're not filming
yeah.
it. So it's amazing that we're doing this.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that was something when I was starting to research eco villages and like communities, I was directly going to YouTube, because I didn't only want to see like a nice website and like, you know, because then I saw in some places it looked super nice, but then I was like, oh, here it's two people living, you know, and I was like, okay, you know, so you don't
That's
really get the vibe of a place. And I didn't find anything on the internet. So that's also why I was like, okay, now let's like, after having landed a little bit in my experience, and I tried also in the beginning to like try to be with Damanhur, like, okay, let's do it all together. But in the end, I also felt that it's much more important that it comes from a personal experience, also like you guys are doing, like, okay, there is the community and you showcase, but you are telling your story, you know, and how that is, because the stories of everyone in the community are also different. So, you know, you, of course, you're showing your lens into it.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always direct people to ic.org, but I feel while it's like a great resource, there's so many communities on there that are like one person with a homestead that wants a community, but like
Yeah.
it's really hard to get from that point to an actual community. So I feel bad that like I understand that people go on there and they're like, wait a minute, okay, what's an actual like, you know, functioning place? So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's cool about the spot that we've been at the garden for a while, is that like literally like anyone can, you know, you can visit it very easily. You can just show up. What's the visitor process of Damanhur?
Well, Damanhur is such a big community, so it's very structured, because in reality, the idea of Damanhur, which I understood after coming here, is actually to like be a new civilization rather than to be a community. So it's like it has a completely different vision in reality. The idea is to be like a new society, really. So there is like, we have our own community school. There is we have had for a long time our own currency, many different own businesses. There is so many people, so many things. So the visitors, they go through our welcome office, which is like one of the businesses in the community. And there are many different ways to visit. Like, of course, people can come also and do like regular work exchange, but being so big, it's very difficult, because then you go to one community, because Damanhur is really a federation of communities. So there's like 30 houses spread in the valley with like 20 people living in one house. And then they are formed in like regions. And we also have a community in Japan and in Norway. So it's huge.
Oh,
so it's really
wow.
difficult to to really get a grasp of it if you don't do a program where someone is really like bringing you all everywhere and connects the dots to you. Otherwise, of course, you have a community experience, but you see like 1% of what it really is. So normally the welcome office, you have the visits. The normal visits are, of course, to the temples, because some people are not even interested in community. They just want to see the underground temple, you know?
Right.
But then, for example, one of the residential programs, I am a coordinator of that, which is a similar program that I came with. But now it's like 10 days of like really immersion into the community, getting to know the community members and trying to see like all the different facets and as many houses as possible, the philosophy and everything. So there are many different options. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. It's like the nucleo communities kind of. So
Yes.
so the total number of people is around like
in the valley it's around 600 people, and in the world is thousands.
Okay, got you. But for the location in Italy, it's like a property where 600 people are living. And so like when you started, you joined a nucleo group, like a house of 20 that you moved into. And are you still with the same group that you started with?
No.
Or you moved around?
They built a house, I think, right? What's that all about?
Yeah, we built a house. Yeah, no, you move around quite a lot. So in my program, I was with one family, and then I stayed there for 1.5 years. They were super sweet. They all spoke Italian, so I needed to learn Italian quite quickly. But then I moved in with a group of young people, all of us who were new to Damanhur. So this is something that is done a lot in the community, that newcomers, they give a house to the newcomers so that they have the possibility to reinvent also things in the community. Otherwise you get stuck in the patterns of the oldies, the community.
Right.
And then after that I met my now husband, and so I moved into his community. And with that community home, we have now built and been living now for just only 1 year, a new village. So we have reinvented living in a big house altogether to build like zero waste houses where every family unit has their own house, and in the middle there is like the common house where we meet and we eat and we spend time together.
Wow. That is so awesome. That like that, because we talk about that as like, you know, because we've only lived in communities of like 20 people, and it's sometimes interesting like trying to combine the perspective of a newcomer with the perspective of somebody who's been there like for a bunch of years, and you're just in a totally different place. And it's like you don't want to shoot down new ideas, but you've like seen that idea tried a bunch of times and stuff like that. So like it's cool that like you're able to kind of like socially organize in a way that is still part of the same family, but has that kind of, and also moving around is good too, because there's things like breakups and things that can happen. And so it's cool to have that. You don't have to leave the community. You have these little groups that to move between.
And also each group is connected to a specific project. So if you're interested in a project in a specific area, you can ask to come to a family that is working with that kind of project. So that is also something that creates connection with the people.
Right.
What kind of projects, for example, are like happening?
So for now, the 4 main communities, let's say, and one community there is at least like 10 family homes like this in one community. So 10 nucleos, let's say, with people living. So one of them is connected to agriculture and to everything that has to do with self-sufficiency. So both with agriculture, they are the ones who have the big farm that provides food for the rest of the community, and the ones who are also researching in like transformation of food and all this kind of stuff. And this is something that is done in reality by everyone, but they are really focused on that. So that is the idea. And then there is another one that is more connected to the preservance of our sacred areas, so the temples and our sacred forest, and they take care, and also the future projects that are many connected to these sacred places. And then there's one that is connected to social invention and like energy sufficiency, solar panels, all this kind of stuff. And then another one that is more connected to like how to bridge like the study of the philosophy, the study, having events, inviting guests, all this kind of stuff, which is where the capital of the community is. So this is like just for the main projects. But then of course there's always the openness to create new projects. It depends on how many people are on board on a project. You know, that's the beauty with community. You can create anything whenever you want.
And for the different nucleos also, is there kind of like different like lifestyle choices and stuff that you take on as separate, and so then each nucleo is living kind of like a bit differently maybe?
That depends a lot on the people who are living in the nucleo. So in some nucleos, for example, there are more older people, and of course they have a different lifestyle than perhaps in some nucleos where there are more younger people. So, and that is of course, but also in nucleos where there are small children, you know, so that depends a lot on how you want to organize yourself within the nucleo, is dependent on you. So normally, for example, we have turns in who cooks for lunch and for dinner, but in some nucleos they decide, okay, lunch we don't do together, we just take something from the fridge like that, but dinner someone cooks and then we take away all together, or there's turns that someone is responsible to take away. So everyone organizes themselves depending on where they are. And some people, for example, in nucleus where there are many old people, they decide, okay, no, we don't want to do anything of that, so we pay someone to do that for us, you know. So you can decide, you know, and that is wonderful for perhaps some young people in the community who doesn't have a work, that they can go and cook. I did that, for example, when I first came. I would cook for families because they were like, okay, no, we have too many people who are or old or working and don't want to do that. And so they ask someone else to come and cook for them and they pay.
Wow. In the Damanhur currency or in...
No, now it's euro. So the Damanhurian currency was called credito, which means like trust. So the idea was to create like a local currency that was based on trust and that would promote local initiatives and not have this kind of, energy of the money that is used for all the bad things in the world. But the problem was in COVID, there was a big hit of course, all currencies worldwide. And this one also, we used that this moment to take back all the money and to re-elaborate something that would be more sustainable, because we saw that it was not really sustainable. It started to be like just something that was the same as euro, but then it was difficult to exchange, difficult to do. So now we are studying with people who are really good in economics how to do that so that it actually works in a good way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, because I'm sure a lot of times there's things that people need to buy from the outside world also, so then you would have to be using both. So then that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
Is in like, so you said, but there are a lot of like businesses within the community. So is there a lot of like production of like items that, like producing your own, I don't know, maybe lumber,
there's a lot of like artisan stuff. So people who are interested in that, there's a lot of jewelry, for example, and but also, for example, the local farm, they have their own businesses of, of transformation of vegetables, or some nucleos, they have like hundreds and hundreds of fruit trees, and they use that to do marmalades, to do stuff. So they have their own things that can both be exchanged but also sold within and without of the community. Then we have a local food market. There we have various bars, these kind of things. But then also that we have one company that works with solar panels and renewable energy. So it's all depending on the interests of the citizens, and if they are like, okay, I want to start a business, who wants to start it with me? And that also helps. The businesses are very much something that supports the community economically also. Which is good.
So, right. And so is it like, so everybody pretty much has a job in that way, or maybe some people don't, or it's just up to them how much they want to earn so that they can buy food within the system? Or
so normally the houses, the houses, to live in the houses, to have a room in the house has a cost. Depending on where you live, you pay differently. So there are some places that you pay much less. It depends also on the standard of the house and everything. For example, there are some people who are living in vans and stuff like that, and of course that has a much lower cost. And then you pay for the food within the community. But this is also how much everyone pays is also depending on how each family handles the money. But for example, the jobs that people have, some people are working with normal things outside of the community and bringing money in, while other people are working within like companies of the community, or creating new companies for the community, which is what I do, for example. So you're working inside but legal. And then there are some services that we as citizens, we pay for. So for example, some jobs, for example, we have a government in Damanhur, and we pay for them, of course, because they are not their salary, and to be able to coordinate the whole community from a political point of view, they need to put in a lot of time for that. So all the community citizens puts away a little bit to pay for them, for example. So there are various like levels. Yeah.
So how is the governing body? How does it look? What's it look like? Are you all like going up to the ballot voting, or consensus, or what's happening?
Yeah, that's also a very complex system. So we have it's like a scale system. So within every family, there is one person who is responsible for the family, who is voted for every year, who is like the captain of the family, let's say. And I am the one in my family, for example. And then in each family, there's also an economist that is dealing with all the money of the family and like, as all this kind of stuff. And then on a community level, there is a governor who is voted for by the community every year, and he also has the economist of the community, and the vice governor, and so on. And then on the highest level, let's say, there are a role. Normally, there are two people, who are the highest social political organ in Damanhur, who are coordinating both all the community in Italy but also worldwide, and they are voted for by everyone, also the ones worldwide, once a year, and they are the ones that they are paid full time by all of us, while, for example, our governor is paid half time by the community, and I'm not paid anything because it's not that difficult to to be the captain of like 10 to 20 people. That's
right.
volunteer.
You're like just kind of like the spokesperson for
Exactly
what the group wants or needs, kind of.
So we have like family meetings every week, and then we have coordination meetings with like the higher levels every week, and then we have like a social political table with all the governors and also international representatives. So it's a quite a complex system, but it has been working for a long time.
And how often do you elect people into the roles of like the governor?
That was one every year, right?
Every year?
Every year, yeah. Before it was every 6 months, because the idea was really but that became too little because we saw that it was not really sustainable, because you really need 1 year both to learn the role, but then also to actually, make the changes that you have decided to make, in your program that you were voted for. You need at least 1 year. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, it's a lot to process. I'm just like, oh, wow, okay, cool.
Yeah. It's big. I think that the only other community in the world who have this kind of level of society organization is Oroville. I have not really heard of anyone.
Yeah. That's like even larger, right? I guess.
Yeah, they are 3,000 people.
Crazy.
Yeah. What community that we were like with was the Rainbow family, the Rainbow gatherings all across the world. We went to one in the north of Sweden, this is where we met. And now we were just in one in Italy, just like north of you, like last year or something? No, actually like half a year ago. Up in the mountains. We were just in Turin. And Julia, you went to, what was the?
I went to the Global Ecovillage Network conference in Italy. Because I went on like a Europe trip where I was like, okay, I'm gonna visit a bunch of intentional communities. And then I tried to schedule it, and then I kept like doing different things, and so then all my plans fell through. So then, but from there, I remember, I wish I could remember her name. I sat in on a workshop about Damanhur with this really, and she was telling about like the history with the founder Falco. Do you know a bit about that history? Could you tell us?
Yeah. Well, I actually arrived here 1 year after he passed away, which was really like damage, because he was supposed to have been quite an important figure, like a very inspirational person. Everyone speaks very like fondly about him. So I felt like, oh, that sucks. Come just 1 year after he died. Yeah, I could have skipped
I could tell even when I met Makako, like it seemed to be. I think it must have been a couple years after, because now that was like 6 years ago or something. But I could tell it was still like she was mostly talking about how much it like really changed the landscape of the community. Kind of like that, the visionary of like the initial project.
Yeah, because he was together with other 12 people who founded the community, but he was the one who gave the input or like the inspiration of the community. So he was the one like, okay, who wants to come with me to create this new world practically? So he was really the one who inspired to everything. And even though with the years, it was super important for him that he was not like a kind of master or guru kind of person, because he always said that like a responsible society needs to be able to look within themselves and think for themselves. And anytime you have kind of a master, you don't do that. So he was like slowly but steadily taking steps back. But still, of course, when he died, everything changed, because he was also someone who gave like the security to to continue. So so I came when it was like a completely down of the community. Everyone was super sad. I was like, okay, what is going on here? Because they were also quite confused, like, okay, how do we do, they knew there was nothing really that changed, because he had never been like in the role of like, okay, I'm the one who decides or whatever, but everything changed at the same time. So but yeah, he was supposed to have been also very a magical figure, like many people considered him like an enlightened being and so on. So he was supposed to have had a very like important role also just by his presence. But he was very like strategic. So he has left, like before he died, he left a lot of letters to one person in the community to be like, to help people, remind them, and to like come up with new projects and new magical things and new things. So he's like playing with us from the death, you know. And they are still coming, these letters, so it's like 10 years. So he like programmed like many years ahead just to like continue to give some guidance, because he died quite prematurely also. He was only 63 years old. And so yeah, so now the process, it was, have you seen the movie like P.S. I Love You? When I came to the community, I was like, wow, he did practically that. He like helped the community to start living again after his passing, and help them to be like, okay, you can do it, and with all these letters. And so it's very beautiful.
Yeah, that's such an amazing thing to set up, just to have like that, still more to get from. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It might sound weird, but I'm sure it's also like great for the community in a weird way as well, to like, take that step and find its own, even though it did have legs before, but find more of that strength within the collective.
Right, like the intergenerationality, like knowing
too.
that. Yeah.
But of course, you need people. There's not that many people who are going to be like, "Hey, we can do this,"
Right.
and like hold people up whenever this way of life has been kind of like stripped away from us for quite some time. So it's amazing to have people like that who are bringing people together.
Yeah, and I think that I see that in many communities, like the ones who are really standing long, have had like really visionary founders who have been able to like help people to come together. But then there is always the step when the founder dies, then you really see the maturity of the people. Like, did they learn, as you said, like, can they stand on their own feet? Or will the community, die because you don't have this like bright sun of this visionary person who's like taking care of all the things? And so, but now it's been 10 years now since he passed away, and the community is growing more than ever. So I think that like the trauma phase has really passed, and I really see that people are standing on their own legs. And what is good is that people are coming who didn't know him, and still falling in love with the community, and still falling in love with the vision, and still wants to dedicate their life to the community. So I think that is then you're already you already passed it.
Right. Yeah, I remember her talking about the how it kind of started as like a collection of artists, and there was a lot of like LARPing kind of, or like theatrical plays, or like play fighting plays or something like that.
Yeah, that was practically, so in the beginning, when they were like only the 12 ones, they were actually setting up the community in an extremely strict way. So they were like really strict, and they had their rhythms, and they have their things, and they left all their homes, they sold all their homes, and they put all the money in like in the middle, and they shared everything to be able to build this place, because they were in their 20s and 30s, so they were super young. And they left everything. Some even left their families and stuff to do this. So it was like a big thing. But then after a couple of years, what happens was that, like in Damanhur, we say that we are completely against dogma. But if there's one dogma that we have, then that is like constant change and transformation. Because as soon as something becomes, static, then it dies. And so these people, they started to become like everything was going super great. And that is also something, when things go good, then you need to change, because otherwise you end up in a crisis, and you change when you have low energies, because changes it's like it always needs to happen. That's life, but they didn't want to change anything. Everything was going super good. And there's where the founder, Falco, he really helped in like trying to be like, okay, we should change, we should add some art, we should do this, we should do this. And he tried for a couple of years, but they were like, no, we don't have time. We have this. So they were really like, they started to become very static. And this is when he left the community. And he said like, I don't know when I'm going to be back. And he went around together with one other person of the community or two, I don't remember. And they went around the whole of Italy for many months. And when they came back with like 50 young people who were like we want to come, we want to create this community, and we have the new ideas. And they came with art, and they came with music, and they came with, because art in Damanhur is such an important thing, because it's like a universal language. And so the artistic expression, it's really like we are all artists inside. It's just a human nature to create. And so that became a huge revolution. They had their first battle, which is a part of Damanhur. We do like battles when there's like social tension within the community. It's like playing, but it's also serious. And after that, there was a big revolution, because they started to create many things, and they used the strictness of the founders to have like consistency, but the creativity and the new energy of the new ones to create new things.
Yeah. Right.
So can you go over what that conflict resolution looks like? What's that?
Yeah. That's fascinating, because I've never seen that anywhere, but on a like community-based scale, what always happens, as conflict is not, you cannot avoid conflicts within a community. That's like, but especially when it comes to like generational people coming in, new people coming in, and old people having been there, there's always tension. And when that tension rises to a certain level, and sometimes it's not only generation, we have had battles also for other things, but this is the most common thing. So there's the older ones who feel like that they have been neglected, that that they know how things works, and then the new ones who think that they're boring and that everything that they have done is not worth it, and so on. So when this kind of tension comes up, you cannot stand it in a community after a certain amount of time. And so what we do is that we have something that is called the Game of Life, which is an institution of the community, who, when they see this kind of social pressure within the community, they throw a battle. And it can be different things, like there can be, oftentimes we have had battles like in the forests even, that can last for like days. So there's rules, of course, like for example, normally if the Game of Life is blowing the whistle, everyone needs to stop. And you have like water guns with colors, and you have like, you have like white shirts or, whatever, and you have your base camps. So it's it's extremely playful. But what happens is that when you meet in that kind of raw animal way, you actually release these kind of tensions, and you meet each other on the playground. And afterwards, you don't even need words to resolve things. Like the energies have already come out, and you did it in a playful way. And afterwards, there's always union. Always. There's never been a moment in which there's not been union, because oftentimes people exaggerate. For example, you hit the person, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. So there always, comes these kind of transformations within the community. So that was the first battle that happened. And what happened in that battle is so transformating, and sees also the role of the founder that was so important, because he practically created a game where he gave the flag of the community, the flag of Damanhur, to the young people. And he said like, okay, if you can protect this flag, you will be the one who can decide the future and how this community will be created. And he told to the old people, if you can take the flag, you will be the ones who decides. And of course, in this battle that happened at that point, the young people, they were very naive, of course, because they had no idea the length that the old people would go to. And so they had like their little base camps, and they had put up like bells all around the fences. So they were like, if they come in the night to try to steal the flag, we will hear them. But there was such a high tension. The founders, the older people, they were so angry because they had so much build-up tension towards these young people that they came all dressed in black in the middle of the night with a tractor that they turned off the engine and they pushed it down the hill so that they couldn't hear it, and it just destroyed the whole fence. And then, the battle began. So, they were just like pulling their hair. It was not a playful battle. It was really a real battle. And the only rule that the founder had put was like, if I blow the whistle, everyone stops immediately. And of course, at that point, he blew the whistle. So everyone stopped, in the positions of like dragging the hair and being like this. And it was completely silent. And he went around to look all of them in the eyes and just said, like, look at you guys. Like, here you are trying to build a new society based on peace, based on values, on acceptance, on diversity, and this is how you want to do that. And he didn't need to say anything more, but everyone was just like feeling super shameful. And the day afterwards, he summoned all of them to the main square. And at that point, all of them, the energy was completely shifted, and they had apologized, and they were already starting to create projects amongst each other. And then they declared that Damanhur won the battle, because in the end it created union. So this is one story of how these things happen. But sometimes we need to get out those energies, and it's more powerful than talking sometimes.
That is mind-blowing. That is crazy. I don't know.
It's okay. Oh, it's over there. One sec.
That's so beautiful to like, because first of all, it's like so validating when you speak of like these things of, tension between the old and the new and things like it's just, doing this podcast with other communities has been so awesome, because it's like so many things that we have been struggling with in our own community. It's just like, oh wow, okay, every single like these things are just, which is just helps you kind of like put it in perspective of just like, it's not like critical flaws in how we're doing it, or because these people are just so unbearable. It's just like tension. It just happens, so. And also I've noticed that like it seems sometimes the more we talk about it, the worse it gets, or it's just like it's not how like we're all willing to sit there and talk about it for 6 hours if we need to, but we're still not necessarily like relieving it, because there's just there isn't common ground. We're just in two different places. And so I've been thinking about like, maybe everybody would just get along if we just like played, or just like remembered what we like about each other, like just come together in a more lighthearted way, because this, it coming together in this serious way is always going to feel weird. And that's so awesome that it's like in the form of this battle. That's like so cool. And
another thing with two people that I heard, I've never seen it myself, but that I heard that they did in the beginning is that if there were two people who really couldn't stand each other, they would put them in one room and they would have them drink like a lot of water. And then they would be like, you cannot come out until you sincerely resolve it. So they would be there like peeing their pants. And then they like, it didn't matter, like they needed to resolve it. They couldn't come out if they were just like, okay, we're friends. They needed to resolve it. And so it took like no time for them to actually meet each other and resolve it, because of the necessity for them to go to pee.
Wow, I would have took that opportunity to piss on my enemy.
Oh, yeah.
No, I don't know.
I think ridiculous solutions are really sometimes the best ones. Like, I'll look for my phone. Do you need my phone?
No, I found it. Yeah, it's low battery too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it sucks. We're just back on this whole podcast game after like a month off, and we're realizing our battery's low and it's like we're dying. Okay. But just letting you know if we disappear. But if you could give us like, or especially the listeners, I know we've talked about it, all different things, but like of Damanhur, what would be the overarching like values that brings the community together and what everyone agrees upon?
Well, there are mainly 3 values that are the most important ones. That is, the first one, as you have already understood, is constant change. Like the only thing that is always the same is that everything always needs to change. And then a huge value is embracing and accepting diversity. Everything has to do with that, from like many of the halls of the temples. We have a lot of projects where we are inviting indigenous peoples, and the idea really that actually we can unify amongst our differences rather than be separated and fight about them. And so it's really like diversity is the richness of humanity, as with like the plant world. Like if there would be only one plant, it would be so boring. Like the beauty of life is when there's multicolors, and so diversity is key. And so also that means also that we don't need to agree with each other. Like we will sometimes we really see life in a different way, because we all have our own way of seeing reality. And so it's not about agreeing with each other, but it's about getting along with each other, and that is two different things. And then the third one is constant research. So the idea is that there is no real truth, which is very important, especially in a place that is very spiritual, and that we don't want to become dogmatic, because the idea is that truth is like a crystal. So everyone has their own, facet of the crystal. And that is, you can only comprehend something truly if you see it from all these different points of view. And to be able to do that, you need to research. You can never stop learning, because if you stop learning, then you die practically, like then your soul dies. And so research is in all different areas. We don't stop, like we research in also metaphysical and spiritual areas, but research is key also. And those are the three things.
Those are all like very fluid values, which is really cool. It's not like we don't do this, or it's just the values in itself is really flexible, which is cool. And it's probably a testament to like the success of Damanhur, is that it never said like, the most important thing is that we never do this or whatever. It's just like it's going to change, it's going to evolve, because people are so different, and bringing them together, like flexibility is so important, I think. Trying to be rigid with people who are always changing and always new people, and it makes it you're fighting like a natural evolution. That's really cool.
And in that, of course, there's a lot of rules, like there's a lot of norms, there's a lot of rules, but there are these three overall, as you said, that are like, that gives this this sense of like that anything is possible, even though we need, like, we have a constitution, because we need to live together. We need to have like common grounds that we have agreed upon each together, being like, okay, think positively. So that is also quite, fluid, but all these kind of things that we decide, but that also changes. The constitution has changed many, many, many times. And so.
But so there are rules that apply to every nucleo community.
Yes, but it's not like rules in the sense, it's more like norms, because our constitution is based, now it's very like vague norms, right? In the beginning it was more like, okay, everyone needs to pick up trash if they see it, but now these kind of things have been taken away because people do that automatically. So the idea is that norms and rules, we can totally live without them, but in the beginning of a society, we need to have something that we all agree upon, because we see reality in so different ways. And so so that's the main thing. But as soon as we internalize that as a people, then we don't need them anymore. That's the idea. And also that the rules and the community, which is something that I have not heard that much in other communities, the community is a tool for the growth of the individual, not the other way around. And so the community needs to change in order to serve the growth of the individuals. It's not the individuals that need to conform to the community. And so that is why Damanhur is constantly changing, because in the beginning the citizens needed something, and it changes depending on the new people that are coming in. So the community is a tool for human evolution.
Do you have an example for that? Like, is like maybe like if there's like a new need of a nucleo, and then the spokesperson would communicate and like get a new.
No, for example, I can give a very special, specific one, which applies also to me, which is that in the beginning of the community, but also up until quite recently, it was not allowed to have, like, in the community, to have private property, because all the property of the community was is many of the main properties are still co-owned by everyone through associations. But in recent years, since Damanhur is growing so much, and since Damanhur, like as a federation, doesn't have the money to like continue to buy new places, the idea to open up for private property has become something that actually allows the community to grow. And so our village that we have here, we have invested personally in the village, and we own the village as citizens, even though we are still part of the community and still contribute to the associations of all the other houses in the community. But this allows for, and then of course, what we want is that we want this place to be left to the community. But so we have created like legal things in a way so that we can allow this place after we die, or, you know, all these things, so that we can safeguard it to the community. But the idea is that people need to have also the possibility to create their own things, to invest in their own things, to enlarge the community through personal interest also. So that is a very concrete, but for like almost 40 years, this was not possible in the community.
Yeah, that's something I thought. We also created like a land trust for a community that we are started in Missouri, and it's something that, you know, like the essential value of like, you know, we're sharing things, we're sharing this land and whatever. But also like, noticing that when people feel like the security of like this part is mine, then they feel like safer to invest more energy and money and like protect it more, you know, and something or like if a chainsaw belongs to everybody, it's gonna like get treated way worse than if it belongs to you. It's just like a natural human thing.
All the time.
It's unfortunate, but like shared items tend to like not be treated as nicely just because it's everyone's. And so creating like that balance of personal ownership that just encourages like stewardship and safety and things like that, without taking away from you know, how still being part of one thing, you know. So that's really interesting. And cool. And also, you know, I was thinking like, even though we're like, oh, cool, you know, it breaks up into little communities, living in one house with 20 people is still probably hard, you know. Getting along with 20 people is a really big accomplishment.
That is not like living in community, as you know, it is hard in general, you know, because it's like, you're not you and yourself, or you and your partner, which is hard enough.
Right.
It's like you and like all these people, especially also, I don't know in your communities, but here there's people both like with cultural differences because they're from all over the world, but also from like social economical backgrounds that are completely diverse and different ages. So you really like clash with also world views sometimes when you're like, what? But you came to this community, we should have the same world view. But it's like, no, they have like, you know, been attracted from something of the community, and they have been, and that is really interesting, really difficult, but also really like it helps you to grow a lot, to be able to, as I said before, understand that you don't need to like everyone, and you don't need to like, you know, see the world in the same way, but you need to find a way to get along, you know, and to respect each other. And that is and that balance is very, you know, it's challenging, but it's working. And then of course everything is about group alchemy. Sometimes just one person is like ruining the whole group, and then you need to understand, you know, as I can imagine that, you know, that you need to understand, like at a certain point, I know in Damanhur there has been some people that have had so much difficulty to change that the community has said like, or you change or you leave. You know, that is also something that you need to do in a group sometimes, because it's, you know, there cannot be one person who's creating all that difficulty for the rest of the community, probably because they have a lot of traumas. But if they don't accept any trauma healing, you know, things, then it's very difficult.
You can only do so much. That's definitely one of the toughest parts too. But realizing when that is, you know, when do you stop being like, wait a minute, is this a conflict, or is this just like
or is it just you, you know, or
right? Is it just this one person, or but then you could also maybe do that too much, like, oh, it's them, not, you know, whatever. So
we're trying to get like as much spots as possible, and that's what's great about having this podcast as well, is where we're, you know, this is actually our first one with you know, an international. I mean, I know I'm a European boy too, but we've only been speaking to people from the US so far, so it's really cool. But like we're getting all these properties to help, build the idea, a network of land projects. So, like and also the podcast helps us connect with other communities. So like if it's not working in one spot, then you can go here. And we're trying to build these bridges with different communities already, but also, buying more land so that we can just create these new spots, because it's so hard for people to want to like open up to people that they've never met. There's usually, this whole program, but like, I heard from, I think, one of your videos that there's like a way to figure out if Damanhur is like for you. Is that like on the website or something, or what's that all about?
Yeah, I think the video that I published like yesterday, you mean? Or the other day.
I don't know. I know you're making a video about it, but I thought there was like something else, like a program to see if it was like if it was for you or something.
Yeah. That is the program that I am hosting. That is the residential program. That is like 10. The one that I spoke about in the beginning. That is like 10 days that allows you to come and live in the community and like really go deep in all of these kind of topics and visit all the different places and meet all the different people. So the idea is that people like come and they do this 10 days where they often come out and they're like, okay, I need a break for a couple of days because it's a lot. But after that, you have a basis and you have created sufficient with connections within the community that allows you to, like, for example, normally a lot of young people after that, they stay in work exchange like I did, because perhaps they don't have the money to, stay and start paying in the, or they, they want to stay for longer periods to like, okay, now I want to live the everyday life here and so on. But at least with a program like that, you really understand, like you get all the basics and the feel, which is the thing that you need. You really need to feel that, okay, I can be a part of this, like a part of this community if I resonate with all of this. So that is the idea of these kind of residential programs in general.
Wow, cool. And so people can find that. How can people do that?
People can find it. This program is called the Community Life Campus in Damanhur. And I think that if you just Google Community Life Campus Damanhur, you will come to the website that brings, like, now we have editions that goes from the first one that it starts now in March over the spring equinox. And then the last one is in October, mainly because from November to February, what happens is that it can snow a lot, and then like here in Italy, I come from Sweden, so for me it's like it's weird, but anyways, here in Italy people don't drive like when it's snowing, and it's like people are going outside of the road and stuff like that. So it would be like very risky for people to pay money and come to a program, and then the program is like canceled because all the people involved like don't want to drive. So that has been done. It has been done to like safeguard the people and the participants to not have those things in wintertime. But Damanhur is open in wintertime also to come for like shorter visits or to come to do work exchange anyways.
Oh, yeah. Cool. And a lot of more people can see it. What's your? It's Celastrina Rebecka is your YouTube channel, right?
Yes, Celastrina Rebecka. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Are we wrapping up?
That's why I'm realizing my battery is dying. Okay, it's like on 5%, and I'm like, I am unprepared.
So people can find Celastrina on her YouTube channel. We'll link it all in the description. Okay. Is there any other thing you want to promote while you have the floor?
No, I think you guys are also doing a great job of promoting like life also in community. I think that's why we're here, like just to promote, like get out of the system and create your own way of living, like because that's how we become free human beings, and we try to like explore ourselves in the process. That is what I try to do, and what I see that you try to do, and I hope that more people are doing,
Yeah, I think it's like y'all, us, and Project Cam. You know Project Cam?
No, I don't know what that is.
Oh wow, they're like huge. They get like 100,000 views like a video. I don't know much about the ins and the outs of the community, but like they're a project in Portugal, and they make videos about like a project that they make like every week. It's Project Cam spelt with a K.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will check it out. Wonderful.
Yeah, they're really cool.
Well, thanks so
Okay.
much for taking the time to talk to us. It was really, really
Yeah.
nice to talk to you.
Yeah, it was
Thank
nice to
you
talk
all.
to you and also to connect and have a good day working on your bus.
Thank you.
Yeah, we got the floor down and now we're building stuff.
Okay, great. Okay, so have a nice day. I will go to bed now.
Oh yeah.
Good night.
All right. Good night.
Good
Sweet
night.
dreams.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.